Oh, well, interesting seeing you all here. It's been a little bit, hasn't it? It's been like at least 2 days since we spoke last. I'm here this time around because I wanted to discuss a matter other than books and movie. I do have other interests besides those. I have at least one other one. It's music, baby. So I figured I would. I'm gonna talk about albums, records that released last year, 2022, last year, that I enjoyed, quite a fair decent bit. I liked these records a lot. This isn't gonna be like. I don't have a script for this. I mean, I have like some notes, but a lot of this is gonna be like off the cuff. It is what it is. So anyway, let's get on with it. This is my list of albums / records that came out in the year 2022, which I personally really enjoyed quite a bit. And if you don't like these albums as much as I do, then you have bad taste. Trademarked. So anyway, this is probably going to be a lengthy video, so let's talk about the first record. Dragon New Warm Mountain this is my first experience with Big Thief as a band. Prior to this, and still now, I haven't listened to any of their previous work, so I can't really speak as to whether or not this album is better or worse than their previous output. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. Dragon New Warm Mountain is a really great indie folk record with like this really scrapped together kind of energy to it. Kind of feels like an album that was recorded by like a group of college kids in like one of their bedrooms or something, which the music video for Red Moon seems to imply is the case. A lot of the songs on this album have this extremely personal, tender, intimate feeling to them, which you can hear probably most notably on the track Promises a Pendulum, which is extremely intimate with only Adrian's finger-picking and vocals. Meanwhile, a track like Red Moon, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album, is just like a straight folk country jam about Adrian visiting her grandmother. It's also got a really good fill part. I liked it a lot. But that's not all that's on this album, because there are at least a couple of tracks on here. I'm specifically talking about the tracks Heavy Bend and Blurred View, which have this element of like this almost kind of electronic / folktronic sound about them. They both have this very interesting, somewhat dark, moody atmosphere about them. Heavy Bend boasting this really gorgeous harp section. I would say a lot more about these songs because, contrary to what it might sound like, I really, really love a lot of different aspects about them, but I didn't take very many notes on the individual songs because I didn't realize I'd be making this video until like just very recently, and I literally just took these notes and listened to these songs like right before pressing record, so bear with me. So in short, it's a good album. It's a really solidly put together indie folk record with some really fun and interesting, exciting instrumental experimentation on it. A lot of the songs sound like they were made to be sung with like a small group of people on a front porch on a breezy summer afternoon, and it gives a really humble, personal, human sound that I really like. It's a great record to put on and to listen to when it's like a kind of cloudy, rainy day outside and you kind of just want to like sit down in a chair with like a cup of hot tea and like read or something. Or if it's rainy outside and you're feeling like sad and depressed. It is for me anyway. So it's a really good album. It's a really great record that I enjoyed quite a bit. The only thing I would say about it is that it could have used more banjo. I play. Hit me up, Adrian. I mean, I'm just saying the record could have benefited from that. I need the work. Please call me. I need a job. I need the work. Goodbye is the final album released by the New England folk rock group Ghost of Paul Revere. The album acts as essentially their final farewell, which they promoted with a farewell tour as well. The record as a whole is a very honest, emotional goodbye album that feels, to me, very reflective. These guys are a group that I personally have really enjoyed for a few years now. And even though it may not necessarily be my personal favorite effort of theirs, it is still an absolutely great send-off record for these guys. Me and My Shadow is a deeply emotional and honest gut punch of a song about depression and this overbearing shadow that never really leaves and probably never will. It's a deeply emotional song where Griffin's vocals soar to these massive heights before coming down in a wave of just this beaten down tiredness.
Well, it follows me, and I know now that it's a living thing.
It has a really beautiful emotional swell towards the end that hits fantastically with this pounding drum beat and this heavy bass line before suddenly quieting back down and crashing back to earth as Griffin says simply, "I hope tomorrow I wake up happy, but I don't know if I will."
Oh, me and my shadow.
Deep is a relationship jam of a song with some really nice banjo work on it and these very deep bassy vocals provided by the group's bass player Sean McCarthy. It's also got like this really cool overdriven climax at the end.
And as far as these things go,
the titular track, Goodbye, is a slow, grooving track carried once again by Sean McCarthy's very excellent vocals. And the song acts as essentially the band's final farewell to one another and their listeners both. It really is a great way for the record to end, and it sucks that these guys are finished, but I'm glad they decided to go out on such a resonating high note rather than slowly fading away. The album really is, honestly, enjoyed best, I think, with that context in mind, with the context of it being a record formed around this bittersweet goodbye. It's not really a record that feels crushingly dour and sad. These guys are happy for what they've done. They're glad for the years that they've had with one another. At least I assume that they are. I hope that they are. And so it doesn't really have this kind of downer vibe about it, but it does still have this gripping melancholy to all of it when you listen to it with the context of this being the guys saying goodbye. Tornillo is the fifth record from Texas Southern rockers Whiskey Myers. Unlike Goodbye, this album isn't really like a huge event record for the group, which isn't to say that it's bad. Honestly, I think I might be one of like a relatively, seemingly smaller group of people who really loved a lot of different aspects of this record. It does have a much bigger, more filled out, polished production sound than some of their previous efforts, which did feel... They still had that studio shine and polish. That's not something that they've never had. And they've always had like that heavy rocker feel about them. But this album in particular does feel kind of like the band exploring a somewhat new sound, a new sonic direction. It's not a complete 180 from their sound. Their original kind of gravelly, scrappy southern rock sound. But it does feel like them wanting to kind of expand their sonic reaches, to expand their sound. And I really dig a lot of it. World Gone Crazy is an absolute jam with these really cool gospel choir backup vocals and guitar solo and crescendo that rips crazy hard. Heavy on Me is a muddy, bluesy slow jam with this really cool slide riff. The opener, John Wayne, is a groovy bass and keyboard heavy banger. I really love the harmonica section and this huge trumpet instrumentation backing it, and that jamming chorus hook. But by far, The Wolf is probably like my favorite song on this album, with Cody's gravelly, snarling, attitude-driven vocals that only get more intense and attitude-driven on that chorus.
So when the hell you think you're playing with now? You don't fuck around and let the wolf out.
And that huge instrumental jam at the end. Good Lord! When the trumpets start blaring in full force and the tempo speeds up, it is nothing short of heavenly. A lot of people have said that Feats is like, at least a lot of people that I've seen have said that Feats is like the big star attraction on this record for them. And Feats is good. It's a good song. But I think for me, The Wolf is probably like the thing on this album. It's punchy and snarly, and it's got this screw you world attitude to it. At least that's what I kind of get from it. So essentially, what I'm saying here is that if you think that Feats is like the main attraction, star player of the album, you're wrong, and you have really bad music taste, and you're probably a loser too, because I have the objective, correct opinion on music. Now, a fair chunk of this record has got this big... Come on. A fair chunk of this record has this big, soaring production sound that honestly, at times, almost kind of reminds me of, like, a big 70s rock kind of sound. With its heavy use of grooves and trumpets and keyboard, while also staying very grounded in the band's southern rock roots. A lot of it, too, actually kind of reminds me of like gospel music with its heavy use of brass instrumentation and gospel backing choirs, but with this dirtier, heavy southern rock flair. And maybe that's why a fair chunk of people were at least somewhat turned off by this record, I guess, is because the band is seemingly exploring new sonic directions on it. I mean, they don't abandon that scrappy southern rock flair and attitude of their earlier work, but it is a different sonic direction that's not quite so close to like the country rock Skynyrd inspired sound of their early days. But I mean, I personally really like a lot of it. Also, Heavy on Me is probably like the most emotionally driven, meditative song on the album, lyrically and instrumentally as well. I don't know how to speak English apparently, and it's really good. It's a really good track that I love like a lot. Overall, it's a good, solid album, and to tell you the truth, I'm not really entirely certain why so many people are lukewarm on it, or at the very least, the people that I've seen talk about it seem to be more lukewarm on it, and I kind of understand that in a way. There are a fair few songs on here that don't. Not every song on here is gonna like stick with you in like a very real way. But it is a really solid jamming album with some phenomenal instrumentation, and I don't know, man. I liked it a lot, and if you didn't, you're probably wrong. Anyway.